So there are a few things that you may notice on it that look kind of similar to Microsoft Project. If anyone listening today works with Microsoft Project regularly, this is a simplified version of Microsoft Project. Now, I would not say that this is a replacement for Microsoft Project. Project has a lot more features. It has resource allocation and a lot more granular control for larger projects. However, if you just have a basic project that you need to do, or even to a mid-size one, this is a really useful tool. And the other nice thing is it's pretty much included with all Microsoft 365 plans. So if you have any Microsoft 365 products, there's a good chance you already have access to Microsoft Planner, which is really cool. This is one of those kind of hidden gem apps that you get with your 365 subscriptions. So you don't need any of the premium subscriptions or anything like that. Just any business standard, business basic should get you access to this, which is nice because Microsoft Project is a bit more of an expensive purchase. So this is nice that you have this option available to you if you already have your 365 products. So to access your 365 Planner app, it's pretty simple. So a lot of the time I use mine through the web app. There is also an option to use it through Teams. I will be covering that a little bit later here. So the first step is what you're going to do is go ahead and sign into your Microsoft 365 account on the web browser of your choice. I opened it up in Chrome today. And so this should look fairly familiar to you if you use 365 regularly. So from your home screen, you may or may not see it listed on the side here. If you haven't used it before, or if you don't use it very often, it might not be listed in your common apps. So one of the easiest ways to find it is to just search for it. So you can type in Planner, and we'll see that in under apps, Planner shows up. So we'll click on that. So then you'll be brought to the Planner. It's called the Hub. So this is kind of like the home screen or the dashboard of your Microsoft Planner account. So this will show all of the open projects that you have, all of the plans you have, ones that you own, as well as ones that you've been shared access to that other people have created. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and walk you through step by step what it takes to create a plan or project in Planner, just so you can get a feel for how it looks and get an idea of what it takes to put them together. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll be able to just jump right into it and start building your own projects and plans using this. It is a super intuitive program, so it did not take me very long to pick this up. So I hope this is easy for you as it was. It's pretty user friendly. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it. So from this screen, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new plan. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to click on New Plan. Pretty simple. Now, the first thing you're going to be shown here are templates. Now, there are several different templates you can choose from, or you can use a blank plan. So for example, if you're doing project management or software development, you could choose one of those. And as what that's going to give you is a preset list of categories or buckets. In this software, it refers to them as buckets. So let's click on this one just for example. So you'll see that these categories or buckets are going to be pre-created for you. So you'll have scope, software requirements, design, things like that. So each template is going to give you a different set of those things. So again, here's another one for an employee onboarding template. For our purposes today, I want to show you as much detail as possible and doing it from scratch. So we're going to start with a blank template. So we'll click on New Blank Plan. And so from here, we can add our name. So for our demo today, let's say that we're going to be building a project for a new server for an organization. So we'll call it New Server. And under this next field here, this is our existing group or additional groups option. So you can add this to your groups that you already have. So for example, I've got the Sundog projects group here. So I'm going to add it to that group. So this ties in with your Teams groups. So if your organization is on Teams, all of the Teams groups you have will be listed as options here. So I'm going to assign this to the Sundog projects group. So that way, anyone who's already in that group is going to have access to this plan and be able to see things and edit them as needed. So that's simple as that. So we'll click on create plan. And now we're brought to this screen here, which is going to be where we spend most of the time when you're working in Microsoft Planner. So right now it's just a blank screen because we don't have any categories or buckets in here. And so let's kind of start off by filling in these fields first. So this first bucket here, the default one it always gives you is the to-do bucket. So for example, if we're saying this is going to be a project for a new server, we'll start by changing this first one. So for example, this first one I would call the discovery phase. So things in the discovery phase would be like identifying your issues, identifying wish lists, things like that, kind of just getting into the project itself. So that's our first bucket. So to have a fully built out project, we're going to need more of those. So to add more, we just click on add new bucket and we give it a name right here. So after the discovery phase, we'll have the planning phase. And then we'll add another one for execution. And then we'll add one more for monitoring. And finally, our last one will be the closure category. So there we go. So just within about 30 seconds, we've already added all the buckets for this project. And the nice thing is you can always move these around, add them, delete them as you need to. So it's very simple to move them around. So you can just click on them and drag and drop. So you can move an entire bucket or category around as needed. So for me personally, I always like to align these somewhat in form of the timeline that these things will be executing. So starting from left to right, discovery would be first, then planning, then execution, and so on. So that's usually the way I do it. You don't have to do it that way. It doesn't stop you from moving them wherever you want, but it is kind of nice that you can move these around. So now that we have all of our buckets created, the next thing that we're going to need to do is to fill out the details of all the tasks within each bucket. And to do that is, again, very simple to do. So under the discovery one, let's go ahead and add our first task. So we'll click on add task. And the first thing we do is we just add a name. So under the discovery phase, our first task, let's say it's going to be review current servers. And so we'll make that task there and hit enter. So now we'll see that we have a task created here. So within the task, there's a lot more detail that we can add. So if we go here and we click on this task that we just created, it'll give us this whole menu here of all these different options of things that we can add for this task. So we'll just start at the top and work our way down here. So one of the very first things here is going to be the assign option. So we can assign other team members to do this task or to be put on this task as someone who's going to be maybe monitoring it or just for observation purposes. So again, this ties in with your Microsoft Teams and your SharePoint as well. So when you're assigning someone, it'll give you a list of people. So for example, let's assign Jeannie here. So she's going to be assigned to this task. So on her Microsoft Planner account, there's going to be a category that's back on the hub where we looked at first that says assigned to me. So these are going to be the ones that are going to show up on her end, and she can work on these and put notes in there as needed as she works through the project. So the next thing we can do is we can add a label. Now the labels are really just for your internal organization. Maybe your company uses color coding for different things. So basically the label is just a way to assign a color to each individual task. So as you can see here, there's lots of different colors you can pick from. So we'll assign this one blue. And you can also add multiple labels. So maybe, for example, different teams have different colors, like your accounting team and your engineering team. So maybe accounting is blue and engineering is silver. So that's just for your internal organization purposes. That could help with that. Listed here, again, the bucket that this is under is the discovery one. So that's already filled out. There's going to be a progress option here. So if you click on this as you're working through these projects and these plans, you can go back and update these tasks as you complete them. So you're going to have the choices of not started, in progress, or completed. priority, you can change priority. So by default, it's going to be medium. Low priority would be something that really is not going to affect the final timeline. If it's something that is critical to the project moving forward and the next steps are hindered upon it, you might want to do urgent or important, but you can select those as well. Another really cool feature here is going to be the start date and due date, because this is where the feature that comes into play that integrates with your Outlook calendar starts to pop in. So this is where it gets really cool. So what we can do here is we can select a start date. So for example, let's say we're going to start this next Monday, and I want this done no later than Friday of that week. So we'll say the 29th. You can also do repeating tasks. So for example, if you have like a morning huddle meeting where the project team, does a 15-minute meeting every morning, you can add a task for that. So we'll add a task for that in just a minute here, just so you can see what that looks like. But for this particular one, this is going to be a non-repeating task. Moving on from that, we can put notes in here. So if you're communicating to other team members, or if you just want to remember for yourself what you needed to do for this task, you can put the notes in there. So for example, we can say, since this is reviewing hardware, we can say, look at the current server and find out what processor it has. And then we can add the notes for that. So this will be in here, and this will be visible for anyone who's been assigned to this task to see. And the other neat thing with these sections is the assigned users can also add their own notes. So as they're working through it, if it's a larger task, they can come in here later and they can say, when on site and looked at server. And as soon as they save that, everyone's going to be able to see that. Now, the other thing with the notes here that you're going to have an option for is the show on card. And as what this little checkbox does is, if you see here in the background here, you can see that these notes, if you click to show it on card, it'll show it on your main board. So depending on how many notes you have, or if it's a larger project, usually I leave some of these unchecked because it gets pretty cluttered. But if it's a critical one that you want to see immediately when you look at it, you can click on show on card and you'll see that right on the card. The next item down here is going to be the checklist option. So this is really good for keeping track of the tasks or the subtasks within these as well. So for example, you can do smaller items that are really basic. So like you can schedule an on-site appointment. And then you can add another item to look at the server. And then you'll add another one to drive back. Now, this one's kind of oversimplified, but this will at least kind of give you the idea of what these look like. So each of these subtasks are really nice because, again, if someone else is doing this task and you're not the one doing it yourself, you want to make sure to give those other team members as much detail as possible so they can get the task done properly the first time. And again, you have the option here to show this on card. So if you want to check that, it'll show this on card. So you can only show one at a time. So you can either show the notes or you can show the checklist. I personally usually show the checklist because I'll show you in a moment here. You can actually check off these items from the main board as you're working through them, which is pretty handy to have. Below this, you have the attachments option. So if there's any documents, PDFs, Excel sheets, Word documents that are relevant to this task, you can add them here. So you can just add them from your computer, Teams files, or you can even link it to a website or something like that. So example, we'll do from computer. And we'll add this picture of the server. So we'll add that in there. And again, you get the option to show it on card if you want. So now you can see that that card there has the picture of the server on it. We'll flip it back to the checklist for now, though. And then below that is going to be the comments section. Again, you and your team members can communicate with each other through comments here. So maybe maybe we assigned Jeannie to this and she went on site and nobody was there and the door was locked. So maybe she could put a comment, went on site and no one there. So that way we can put the comment on there and we'll know that, went on site, no one there, and that's why this task has not yet been completed, because we couldn't get in the building to look at the server. Below that, it just gives you some different options for attaching more documents that may have been recent documents you've been working on. So you can just click on those and add those to the task as well from there. So that's how we add a task. So from there, we can just click off in the gray area. It auto saves. There's no save button or anything like that. So we just click off there and we'll see that this task has now showed up on our main board, which is pretty cool. And another cool feature with this is, again, it's drag and drop. So we can just click on this and we can drag it over to different buckets if you want to do that. So we can drop it back where it originally was. You can also copy them. So I can copy this task and I can put it in a different plan. So if I have a totally different project, I can put it in a different project. If it's a similar task that repeats with all of the projects I do, that's really, really handy to have. Or we can drop it within the same project under a different bucket. And again, we can assign to the same people, keep the same dates, or we can not keep the same dates and assignments and redo that. So again, if you're starting a different project with a different team, but you want to keep the same task list, this is really handy to export that. So you can see we just copied it here, but we didn't keep the assignments or the dates on this one that we copied. So that's pretty cool as well. So the other thing that is nice with this is you can also, again, drag and drop and reorder these. So for example, let's add another task, a recurring task for our morning meeting. So we'll add that. And again, we'll go back in here. So we'll assign this again to both of us. And we'll add a label. We'll add a yellow label for this one. So really the thing I wanted to show with this is the repeat function. So we can say it repeats weekdays because we're not working on weekends for this project. And it's going to start today. And so every weekday, this task is going to repeat itself. And we'll add some notes here. And that's it. So now, every day on our calendar, this is going to reappear. So if we look at the schedule up at the top here, we have a tab for schedule. And we can see here that the schedule for this plan now has this morning huddle option repeating every day, which is also pretty neat to see. This is what I was talking about earlier. So this will integrate with your Outlook calendar as well. So you can start to see as you build these projects out, you can start to see these items on your Outlook calendar as well, which is very handy for scheduling purposes. So let's go back to our board here. So some other things I wanted to show. Let's just get a few more items built out scheduling wise. So let's add a execution task. And again, let's go in here. And I really want to demonstrate the scheduling feature. So let's go down and say this is going to start October 2nd. And this particular task is going to finish on the 5th. And that's all we need for that one for the moment. So if we go back and we look at our schedule here, so this is for September. So if we go to October, again, we'll see that this execution task that we just made is going from the 2nd to the 5th. So as you start to build this out, you'll start to see your overlapping timelines, things like that. Maybe you have conflicts, and it'll help to really see it in a graphical way. That way you can help keep your schedule aligned as cleanly as possible. And again, you can move these back and forth as needed. This doesn't affect scheduling or anything like that. This is just for graphical purposes for your organization. So moving these around doesn't affect their schedules. So again, if you want to rename these groups, if it ends up working better down the line, you can do that pretty easily as well. So the charts tab here, this is also a fairly handy one. If you have a team with several people on it and it's more than just yourself, maybe you're the project manager and every morning you want to check in and see on how all the tasks are doing that everyone's working on. So as you add more tasks, this is going to start to fill out more. So for example, this is kind of a dashboard that shows where the project is. So right now there's 4 tasks left to do, and none of them have been completed. None of them are in progress yet. So if we go back to our board, for example, and we say this one's in progress, and we say this one has been completed. Now we go back to our charts and we'll see that this has changed. So as the projects progress and as more people get involved, this becomes a really useful tool because we can see from a single pane of glass here that 2 tasks are not started, one's in progress, one's completed. And a task will become late if the date on the schedule that you had set for it has passed and it's not been set to complete. So what I mean by that is this due date here. If it becomes past that and it's not in a completed status, it's going to show us late. So if we say this one was due on the 19th, and we click out of that now, so we'll see the calendar turned red. That means this is in a late status. So now back on our chart, we can see we have one late task. So immediately as a project manager, we can look at that and we say, uh-oh, that's red, that one's late, that's not good. So from there, we can go in and we can find out exactly what's going on. So on the right-hand side, we can see this late one here is the review current hardware task. So I can click on it right from here. I know exactly who's assigned to it. I know when it was due. I can look at the notes and see exactly what's going on. So maybe I scroll down, see this note that went on site, no one there. Now we know this one's late because the client wasn't on site that day. So this is really handy for keeping track of tasks, in progress and late as well. So another view you have here is the grid view. So this kind of just shows things in more of a list format, less graphical, more of kind of gets that feel of being like an Excel spreadsheet kind of stuff like that. So if that's what you're used to working in, functionally pretty much the same. You can still do all the same things, delete tasks, complete them, things like that. You can pretty much do all the same stuff. You can assign people, set your dates. So all the same functions, just laid out a little differently if that's something that you prefer visually. One other thing here is when a task is set to complete, you'll notice that this one collapsed. So if we uncheck that again, so this pops up. As soon as I set this task to complete, it'll collapse itself. So that way, if we have a lot of tasks within a particular project, as we're closing them, our board is not cluttered up with them. So that's also really handy to have. I did want to point out, so the reason I like to show the task checklist on the card is because as you're going through, you can check mark each individual subtask. So now those, as I'm doing them, are getting completed and it's showing 2 of 3 have been completed. And again, we can always get more detail by just clicking on the task and we can see that those first 2 have been crossed off and checked. Another cool thing with these checklists is you can also export things here. So for example, if we want to copy the task, again, we can copy it to other places or we can copy links to it as well. All right, so let's go over a few other features here. So again, there's some additional menus here. So the cool thing with this is it integrates with all of your other 365 products that you have. So your Teams, your SharePoint, your OneNote notebooks, SharePoint sites, things like that all tie in with this. So for example, if I want to look at the files with this, I can go here, click on files. So if this is a large, long running project, it may have a lot of files associated with it, like, maybe time cards from employees, vendor receipts, things like that. So we can see in here, this links right to a SharePoint site. So we can see we're on a SharePoint now. And so we can see that all of these files are in here. So example, the picture of the server that I dropped into that task earlier, this automatically gets dropped in here because I attached it to one of the tasks. So this is really handy as well. So again, we see the Sundog projects. This is the SharePoint site. And again, so this links us right into SharePoint. So now we're getting into SharePoint territory, which I won't go off on that tangent today, but we do have some videos available on SharePoint as well. Getting back to our project, in addition to the SharePoint link, it also has a notebook dedicated to it. So when you click on that notebook, it's going to redirect you to the OneNote notebook that, again, this ties in with your Microsoft Teams account and your OneNote notebooks. So this is going to be accessible and be able to be shared by the entire team that is working with this project. So again, this is really useful for like quick notes, or if you have morning meetings, maybe you throw your meeting minutes in here, things like that. Again, all links back to this one central pane of glass within this Microsoft Planner project that we have going on here. So again, this is some really useful stuff for collaborating with other team members. Sites, again, that's going to link with SharePoint sites. Some other cool things is if you want to, you can export this to an Excel sheet. Again, I know a lot of us out there have traditionally done our project management in regular Excel sheets. So if you're one of those people, or if maybe one of the people on your team is insisting that they keep working in Excel, you can actually export this to an Excel format that they can then open and work in Excel with all the same information. So just one extra thing to help you collaborate with as many people as possible. So a few other things here in the plan settings. You just got a couple options for customization. So some graphical things. So if you want to change the background in here, you can do that. It gives us a bunch of different options. So one kind of cool thing is at first glance, it looks like there's only a few different options for backgrounds, but it will actually give you different background options based on the name of the project or the plan. So for example, this one's called New Server. So if I retitle this New Construction, it's going to change the background. So now I have backgrounds related to construction. So that's just kind of a neat little thing there. So just kind of a fun little thing to customize it. So we'll put it back to server. And so again, it's going to give us things that it thinks are related to new servers. So here's some pictures of a server. So we'll go ahead and go with this one. And again, there's no save button or anything. You just click on the one you want and then click off of it and it'll save. So if we exit out of that, so now our background is some server hard drives there. So that's kind of cool as well. Getting back into the plan settings here again, you also have options for group members and the groups that it's assigned to. You can change the permissions, so you can make it private or public. So by default, I usually recommend private. So only people you invite to the group are going to have access to this. If you make it public, anyone in your organization is going to have access to it. So depending on what it is, you can change that as well. The notifications tab, this is pretty handy as well. So if you're creating a bunch of different plans and projects, and you don't want to be bombarded with update emails every time someone adds a note or completes a task, you can choose whether or not you want to receive emails for different things. So if someone assigns you a task, right now this one is enabled to send me an email, and if a task that I have is late or due today, it'll email me reminders as well, which that's pretty handy to have so you don't get lost in the shuffle and forget to do your tasks. You can also choose to have it send you an email when someone else is assigned or completed a task. So a little bit of customization there as well. So that is the bulk of the web version. I do want to also show you the Teams integration that this has as well. So let me minimize out of this and we will pull up our Teams here. So again, I know a lot of us are working in Teams nowadays. So the cool thing with this is you don't have to use the web version. You can work solely out of your Teams profile. And to do that, the first thing we need to do is go to the team that we want. So I'm going to do this in the Sundog projects team. And then we need to add the app add-in. So to do that, we just go up here to the top to the plus sign. And we're going to type in my planner. And tasks by planner is what it's going to show up as. Just be aware this one shows up as a little bit different icon than we have in the web app. The web app's a green one. This is a purple one. So just be aware of that. So again, now we can choose to create a new plan or we can use an existing one. So for example, here's my new server one that we just built. So I'm going to uncheck post this to the channel about it. If you leave that check, it's just going to send a notification to everyone who's a member of the team that you have just added the planner and to-do add-in. So we're going to use that project and we're going to click save. Give that a moment to load up. And just like magic, all of our stuff that we just created in the web app has now appeared in our Microsoft Teams local profile. So the really cool thing like with this is if you prefer to do most of your stuff within Teams, we're still right here in Teams. You still got your chats, your Teams, your calendar, you're within Teams. So you can work and still be getting your chat messages and things like that. So again, it functions pretty much the same way. Buttons are sometimes in a little bit different spots, but effectively, we want to add another task here. We'll add a task. We'll name that planning task. Drop that in there. And just like the web app, there it is. We can click on it. Same menu options we get here. So we'll put our notes and to do item. And again, it's all there. Same exact layout as it was in our web app version. So now that's there. And again, the really cool thing is it's all integrated. So if some members on your team like to work from Teams and other people prefer to work from the web app, it's all going to sync in live time. So we can see that this immediately showed up here on my web app version. So here it is. If someone's working on the other side of the country, other side of the world, it's all going to sync up pretty much in live time, which is really cool, regardless if you're working in the Teams app or if you're working on the web browser version. There is also a mobile app version. So if you want to download the app on your iPhone or Android, you can do that as well. And again, look at these tasks, add them, edit them, add notes. So the mobile app is really handy if you're like a field engineer and you're going on site and maybe you're taking pictures. So let's use our server project, for example. So you go on site to review the current server, you take a bunch of pictures of it. You can then immediately from your mobile app for Microsoft Planner, you drop those pictures into the files portion here. So as soon as you drop those pictures into the files here, everyone on this plan in the project is going to have access to those photos. So, for example, if you drive out there, you take the pictures, before you even have time to drive back, the other team members could have reviewed those photos, got the information they needed from them, and then moved on to the next step. So it really streamlines things in that aspect. Not only for IT things, this can apply to, pretty much any industry. Construction, there's a lot of uses for that. If you're doing job bids and you need to go out, take some pictures of, some damage on a roof, your estimator goes out there, takes the pictures. By the time he gets back to the office, the rest of the estimating team can look at the pictures. They'll have a quote put together and sent off maybe before that estimator even gets back to the office. So again, stuff like that really streamlines things. And the other really cool thing with this is since it's all in 365, it's pretty much going to be around almost forever until you delete it. So, if someone loses the laptop or they lose their phone, they're not going to lose all of those photos and all of those documents because as soon as it's uploaded to 365, it's in the cloud. And it's going to be there where you need it, when you need it, regardless of if your local server fails, if your computer fails, or you lose it, anything like that. So that's also really useful to have. Back on the teams here. So again, it's going to show all the same info. You'll have your charts, your list view, and your schedule view as well. So that is about the basics of it. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything else here for you. So you can look in the assigned to me portion here. Again, these are all of the tasks that I've assigned myself. So if you're another team member, so for example, I assigned these two to Jeannie here so she can look at those. If she was looking at the assigned to me tab, she would just have those two showing in this section. So creating tasks does not necessarily assign you to them. So just be aware of that. So when you are creating them, so let's see if we look at the whole new server project here, we'll see that my initials are only on a few of these, on the ones that we completed here, but not on all of them. So for example, this one is not assigned to anyone yet. So by default, it's not going to automatically assign people. So if I look for that planning task here, we're not going to see it because it's not assigned to me. So that is something you do want to keep in mind is if you're going to be relying on the assigned to portion, make sure you do assign it to someone. Otherwise, it will just sit here kind of in idle mode. And again, you can copy entire projects. So for example, if I want to save this as a template, I can go here, or sorry, it is going to be under copy plan. So under these three dots here, copy plan. So we can copy this entire thing. And so say I like this one, I can rename it new server template. And I can assign it to a different group if I want to. I'll just leave it unassigned. Well, I'll just drop it in our Sundog projects group. And I'm going to choose to only keep these three. So again, since I'm going to turn this into a template, I don't want attachments or priorities or dates assigned because it's just going to be a generic template. So now once I copy this plan, now I'm going to have access to this. As soon as it refreshes here, it sometimes takes a few minutes just for it to pop up. But essentially that's going to show up as a template that I can use. So there we go. So there's our new server template. So now I can go in here. And anytime I want to do a new server project, I can just come in here and this is the template one and I can copy it again. And so now I can call this new server number 2. Assign it to my Sundog group and we'll copy the plan. So that'll pop up there. And so I can basically leave this one that I named server template in the state of being unedited. So I'll just copy it each time. And so now the next time I have a new server project, I just go in there, copy it, wait a minute or so, it'll pop up and we'll be ready to go to start assigning team members, assigning priorities. And really the only things we have to change at this point are the dates and the assignments. So I can come in here, assign myself, give myself a due date of the end of October, and that's it. So once you get these plans built out, especially for tasks and projects that you're regularly repeating that don't have a lot of change in them, then you can really start becoming efficient with things because you can just turn them into templates like this, copy them, and within about 10 to 15 minutes, you can have a really detailed project built out. So again, this is a real big productivity booster. So I do encourage you to take a look at this. Again, this is something that is going to be included with pretty much all Microsoft 365 account plans that you have. So as long as you have some form of paid Microsoft 365 account access, you should have access to this as well. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen now and we'll jump back into Q&A. All right, Mallory, did we have any questions come through?
We do not have any questions. If you got any questions, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can leave them there.
All right, well, we'll give it just about a minute here. And if there's no questions, I will let you get on with the rest of your afternoon. And again, this is going to be posted up on our YouTube page. So if you feel like there's something in here you want to share with the rest of your team, again, I do encourage you to check out the Sundog YouTube page. In addition to this, we have a whole bunch of other videos on different Microsoft products, security, training, things like that. Pretty much anything related to IT that might be useful to you. We probably have something in there for you. We also have a lot of little quick tech tip videos on there as well that are little 2-minute snippets. Looks like maybe we got a couple coming through, Mallory.
Yes. Got one from Jason. As tasks are completed with team member calendars, be updated to reflect that, specifically if they are completed early or are late.
Yeah, so basically, Jason, so within the schedule here, as they are completing them, let me just pull this up here. So let me make sure I read that question properly. Team. So yes, so as a team member is looking at this, so if I were to sign in as another user who is assigned to a task on here, as I complete them or as they complete them, these tasks would show completed. So for example, if I assigned this task, so this one's assigned to Jeannie. So for example, if she logged in and
could you show the Microsoft?
Oh, hi, I'm sorry, I'm not showing the screen here. All right, perfect. Sorry about that. Okay, so Jason, so back on the schedule portion here. So we'll see this one that's marked late. So for example, if Jeannie had done this one and she had marked it as completed on her end, I would be seeing the same thing. So if that gets marked as completed, for everyone on the team, we're going to see that that has turned green and turned to completed. So the schedule portion is a shared portion. So everyone everyone's going to see that schedule and they're going to see as tasks are updated. So as they're completed, they'll turn green. If they go late, they'll turn red. And they're just gray if they haven't been started yet. Does that kind of answer the question? Perfect. Awesome. Yep. And if you ever have any follow-up questions to any of this, feel free to send an email or give us a call. We're happy to help you out with that. So I'll jump back to our slide here. All right. Looks like we're right at 11:42, so right at that 45-minute mark. So I don't see any further questions coming in. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap up here. Again, Sundog's on all of the major social medias. Again, I'd focus on the YouTube one. That's going to have the most info for you. Lots of videos on there. So I do encourage you to check them out. And thank you for joining us today.